Good day to all you wonderful Elvis fans. This is Joe Sin's Rare Elvis Photos. We've got another episode of Child Bride today. Hopefully you enjoyed the From the Ear of the Heart, Dolores Hart, beginning yesterday, and the reading of Elvis in June, the June Wanico story. It's called In the Twilight of Memory. If you want to look for yourself on eBay or one of those bookstores to buy it. But thank you to all you Elvis fans. First off, you know, you're the reason why Elvis sang. You're the reason why Elvis acted. You're the reason why Elvis toured. He loved you very much. Thank you to all you subscribers, new and existing. To those that have left me super thanks. To those members. Without further ado, hey, if you haven't been to my Facebook and you enjoy a lot of drama, there's a lot of drama over there. I don't really respond much back to that side because there's a ton of Priscilla lovers over there. But it's the same name, Joe Sin's Rare Elvis Photos. Also, I've noticed a couple more orders coming in for the t-shirts and mugs that are below this video that I designed. Prissy B should lose the Pressy name, and Prissy Bobblehead. Anyways, that's for y'all. If y'all want to have something fun to wear or to have in your coffee mug, it's there for you, okay? All right, let's get to reading. Jamie Lindbergh, the boy that Priscilla loved and left for Elvis Presley that fateful spring when she was 17, wondered more than once what might have been. He went to college after Priscilla left Germany. Well, first off, I'm at page 235. Y'all ask me, hey, what page you're reading Child Bride from? 235. Okay. He went to college after Priscilla left Germany and then to Vietnam where, like Priscilla's real father, Jamie became a pilot. He married in the spring of 71 and honeymooned in Las Vegas. On his honeymoon night, Jamie took his bride to Caesar's Palace to watch Tom Jones perform. Now, sitting directly behind him were Priscilla and Elvis Presley. That's where we ended the last reading. I thought, that's just crazy. Crazy coincidence. Jamie said, I about died. I was so really in love with that gal that I'd married that I was back from Vietnam. So screw up, you wouldn't believe it, I thought. Isn't that ironic? Jamie tried to make contact with Priscilla that night, but the little guards wouldn't let me back. And I thought, so who needs that humiliation anyways? His bride, he recalled, was also hyper jealous. Priscilla was probably like, hey, that guy up there, don't let him anywhere near me. Don't let him back here around me and Elvis. Because she knew Elvis would go, you slept with him, didn't you? I'm sure with Elvis and Priscilla sitting right behind Jamie, you know he turned around. You know he made eye contact. And it had to be very uncomfortable for Priscilla. Priscilla was still intent that spring on learning karate. And she had proved as dedicated and athletic at the sport as she was at dance, or whatever her focus in life was. She enrolled in Kang Ree's Taekwondo classes in Memphis in June so she could keep up her training whenever she and Elvis were at Graceland. Her nickname at Ree's karate studio was Tigress. See, Elvis was Master Tiger. I don't think her nickname would have been Tigress if it wasn't for Elvis being Master Tiger. Come on. Now, do any of y'all, any of y'all ever seen Priscilla do any martial arts? I haven't. If she was really that good, wouldn't there be something on film? Even after she left Elvis, which is during the Mike Stone days? I don't know. Maybe she was good. You know, maybe we are underestimating the Tigress. I don't know. What do you think? Okay. When Elvis performed at the Sahara Tahoe that July, Priscilla and Lisa flew back to L.A., where Priscilla resumed her private lessons with Ed. That summer, Priscilla and Joan and a karate instructor named Bob Wall drove to Orange County, south of LA, to watch a martial arts tournament. Now, part of Priscilla's homework in karate was to study other practitioners' techniques. She combined the exercise with her photography hobby, taking pictures of the better fighters so Elvis could study their moves. Now, by what appears to be happenstance, Mike Stone, the aggressively macho karate expert who had captured her fancy at the Hawaiian tournament 3 years earlier, was also in the audience, seated near Priscilla and her group. Mike had since grown his hair into an afro. With his swarthy Hawaiian complexion, he appeared almost African American. You'll have to excuse me there. A gnat flying around there. Gnats bother me. Okay, so he appeared almost African American. His wild, unkempt look held Priscilla in thrall. She spotted him instantly and, according to Mike, began devising a plan to entrap him. According to Mike Stone. Now, I don't specifically have a problem with Mike Stone, the person, today, right? He was on the show. Some of y'all don't like him still. You guys are more than welcome not to like him. He's older now. He wrote a book. He talked about not wanting to go back and look at life's regrets because you can't move forward by looking back. So he's out there doing a lot of positive things. He's been married for 30, 40 years, something like that. But if Mike said that night she started devising a plan to trap him, it's probably true. Because she probably told Mike this. Chuck Norris, then in his pre-movie star days as a karate legend, introduced Priscilla to Mike in passing. When two of the fighters lunged in their direction during the tournament, Priscilla leaned back in her chair, hoping Mike would catch her. Instead, he stepped out of the way, and she fell flat on the ground. That's funny. And also, hey, maybe for those of y'all that don't like Mike, maybe that make you like him a little bit more. The fact that he wasn't after Priscilla. She was a seductress going after Mike. I don't know. His coolness merely stoked Priscilla's interest. Mike wasn't the kind of guy who would come up to you and go goo goo gaga. He stayed indifferent. He kept his distance, almost to the point where you had to go to him. He wouldn't come to me. See, most guys were all over me. But Mike, he wasn't. He was very reserved and very non-committal, even in talking to me. As he should have been. She was married to Elvis, right? He was aware of that. He'd look, and then he'd look away, and it was almost like, this is interesting. I'm going to talk to this guy, said Priscilla. By the way, it's very early morning. I told my wife last night, instead of me waking up at 4:30 in the morning and just laying there and trying to not move for an hour and a half before my wife wakes up, I said, babe, I'm probably just going to get up and I'm going to get a video reading in to everybody to make sure I get it in. And so when I woke up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock like I normally do, I've gotten up and it's early, so I'm spending the extreme early morning down here with y'all. All right, let's keep reading. Soon afterwards, Ed Parker left town for summer vacation in Hawaii and sent Priscilla to study with Tom Kelly, who managed the Parker Karate School in Santa Monica. A few weeks later, the 1st of August, she returned to watch another karate tournament, the Long Beach International. This time in the company of Lamar Fike's wife, Nora, and Jerry Schilling. Jerry Schilling's involved at this point. Priscilla would later claim her attendance at the tournament was part of her continuous karate instruction, or that she was there to photograph the match for Elvis. But her presence appeared to be a continuation of her familiar, calculated modus operandi. Once she had focused on a goal, which in this case seemed to be Mike Stone. Mike was there as a spectator, and Chuck Norris again introduced him to Priscilla, then sat between them to watch the tournament. Now Priscilla flirted over Chuck's shoulder with Mike, who was still standoffish, thus intensifying her pursuit. After the tournament, she saw Mike in conversation with a mutual friend, singer Dick Dale. Ah, that's interesting. Dick and I played a couple shows together. Out in California, I brought him to my high school. I was 16. And I had him play a couple songs with me and my little group. Of course, Dick Dale was lived in the desert of California. He lived out in Joshua Tree. And I lived in 29 Palms. And then later we played a little benefit together as well. Dick has passed away now. But Dick Dale was a really good guitar player, a surf guitar player. So, all right, so interesting. I didn't know that. By the end of the conversation, Priscilla had learned that Mike ran a karate school in Westminster near Huntington Beach, and she suggested that she stop by to watch the classes. Now, Mike said, I said it was way too far from Huntington Beach to Beverly Hills, recalled Mike. But within 48 hours, Priscilla, who had never driven on a freeway before and was terrified, reunited Nora Fike to drive her to the house. Recruited Nora Fike to drive her to the house an hour or so to Mike's studio. It didn't take much time to understand that she was interested, said Mike, because it's a hell of a drive. Normally, nobody drives that kind of distance to watch somebody teach a class. And she wasn't that anxious to leave. We went next door to get a pizza. She still wasn't that anxious to leave. And then she came down several more times. Excuse me. Little itchy here. Allergies. All right. Mike, who was married with a 4-year-old daughter and a second baby due that month, seemed perplexed by Priscilla's aggressive. I thought Priscilla was shy. I thought she was shy and demure. Mike seemed confused by Priscilla's aggressive attention and invited her to his house after one of the classes to meet his wife. Probably to try to cool Priscilla's jets. His wife's name was Fran. Y'all might remember that there was an article out there about how Priscilla stole her husband. I think she had to sell her story to the Inquirer to try to live after inevitably Mike left her. Priscilla accepted the invitation and spent the evening chatting with Fran Stone, calculating, it was said later, how to lure her husband, Mike, away from her. Priscilla and Mike's friendship quickly shifted into dating. With Priscilla the seductress, according to Mike. Well, things just naturally take a course, For example, if she comes down and you say, well, what do you want to do afterwards? That becomes a date. And then other things would come up, martial arts events, and then one thing just leads to another, and then these other things came up. I guess they were considered dating, Mike said. Priscilla would later describe Mike Stone as just the right person at the right time. I mean, it wasn't like I was looking out for anyone. So Priscilla was looking for just the right person at the right time to destroy Mike's life, to destroy Mike's wife, Fran's life, to destroy Mike's wife and Mike's daughter, the 4-year-old's life, to destroy the newborn baby on the way's life, to destroy Elvis's life. Priscilla, the destroyer. Maybe there should have been a movie, Priscilla the Destroyer, because that's what she was. She's that character in all the movies that everybody hates. Yet, here she has some loyal following of lovers, Priscilla lovers. Prissy bobbleheads. They're like little bobbleheads with her. But I think it's because they don't know this. I mean, it's there. It's historical. It's not like this is made up. Priscilla seduced this married man, got him to leave his wife, 4-year-old daughter, I think it was, 4-year-old something, and a newborn on the way. Huh. Okay. Bob Wall, a black belt who was close to Mike, Chuck Norris, and the others in their karate circle, considered Mike one of the few men who would have dared to have an affair with Elvis Presley's wife. Wall described Mike as a masculine, manly kind of guy. Funny, good-looking, somebody that, well, how many people wouldn't be afraid of Elvis? Afraid of his image, afraid of his money, his ability to have them knocked off or something. A lot of things the average guy wouldn't be interested in taking on. That was precisely the quality that attracted Priscilla. And it had since she first laid eyes on him, for Mike Stone fulfilled that physical, sensual power that Elvis was only symbolized. He was like an animal to me, she said later on, giggling. So here's the deal. If Priscilla hadn't tricked Elvis and took him to the cleaners, I mean, of course, Mike is still married. You still got to have a problem with that. But you can't blame somebody for being attracted to somebody. I mean, it's just how it is, right? You can't question that. But this is a whole different story. This is Priscilla doing what she did. Okay, let's continue. Too much reading to do here. He was like an animal to me, she later explained, giggling. I mean, he was different. There was something about him that was very powerful. I mean, he had a lot of strength. He was so good at karate, it was unbelievable. And she was physically excited by the fact that he was the best at what he did. Everyone raved about Mike Stone. Now, Mike said, I think it was partly the physical part. I say physical, but I mean the other part. Mike analyzed several years later that Elvis was maybe too busy with other things and didn't spend enough time with her taking care of business, and a whole lot of other things that accumulated over the years. She was always very strongly wanting to be her own person. And that was a very driving thing for her at the time, to get out and experience things. Now, Mike's wife, Fran, gave birth to their second daughter, Lori, on August 4th, as Priscilla and Mike were inching closer to consummating their new flirtation. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Mike didn't allow it, probably. Priscilla would have hopped in there within a minute and a half, probably, of maybe 30 seconds. She would have jumped into it. I mean, self-admittedly, that's what she was into and what she wanted. But that's interesting. Did y'all know that? I think a lot of people assumed that they started their affair before this second child was born, and that Priscilla took him away from a pregnant wife. She wasn't pregnant, so I don't know. I don't know whether that was Mike. This is interesting to really hear the real backstory. Okay. So Mike's wife, Fran, gave birth to their second daughter, Lori, on August 4th as Priscilla and Mike were inching closer to consummating their new flirtation. Fran Stone would later write a magazine article called How Priscilla Presley Stole My Husband, though Priscilla denied that she was a factor in Stone's eventual divorce. "I didn't break up the marriage. He already had told me there were problems in the marriage," she said, so she dropped her pants and took off her top. Anyways, I shouldn't say that. I might get in trouble here. Come on, Priscilla. Always the victim. Always the innocent, right? Mike would later say that his marriage to Fran was on the rocks when he met Priscilla, but Bob Wall, who was close to both the Stones and Priscilla, admitted that it was a big shock to Fran because she loved Mike deeply. She'd honor that he was vulnerable to another woman, and I think that there was a lot of Mike being caught up in, this is Elvis's wife. This is Priscilla Presley. She's been with the king. I think there was a lot of that in him initially. Priscilla, who could seem so demure, had, lest one forget, another side. Bob Wall described her as a fireball at karate, very competitive. By 1996, more than 20 years and 2 divorces later, Fran would not discuss the triangle composed of herself, Mike, and Priscilla, saying that she didn't want to dredge up dirt. So basically, Suzanne tried to get Fran to talk more, but Fran was like, I'm done with it. Probably because she was scared of getting sued by Priscilla. Maybe Scientology had already threatened her. Priscilla, beginning that summer, conducted her life in secrecy, a recurring pattern for her. Elvis, who was excited by the fight photos that she took for him, invited Mike Stone and Chuck Norris up to the house in Beverly Hills a few times to talk about karate, unaware that he was entertaining his wife's paramour. I guess that would tick Elvis off. I mean, Mike could have declined. So when Elvis finds out later on, he probably did feel very betrayed. Not just by Priscilla, but by Mike. Okay. He also invited Mike and Chuck to Las Vegas to watch him perform. Chuck took his wife Diane, and Mike went alone. Priscilla, who was in Vegas that night, wandered backstage, recalled Myrna Smith, and told the sweet inspirations about the fine and foxy guy in the audience. So we were all kind of looking from the stage. I was in the Sweet Inspirations dressing room, said Kathy Westmoreland. Priscilla had come to see the show and brought Mike Stone with her. One of the girls mentioned how good looking he was, and Priscilla turned around and said, "Hands off, that's mine." I was shocked, and we were all, uh-oh, something is going on. Elvis had no idea that something was in progress. During the show, he introduced Chuck Norris and Mike Stone to the audience, praising their karate skills and describing Mike as one of his best friends. If Elvis had had a drinking buddy, offered Myrna Smith, that is how warmly he introduced him. Myrna and Kathy and the rest of the backup singers, who understood exactly what signals Priscilla had been sending them concerning Mike Stone, could not believe what they were hearing. The evening grew more curious after the show when Elvis invited Chuck Norris and Mike Stone to join him and Priscilla and the Presley entourage in his dressing room. Elvis, his aides would recall, suggested to Priscilla that she study karate with Mike, since he was the best. Priscilla would later attribute her drives to Westminster to see Mike to Elvis's recommendation. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. It's like a Shakespeare play, isn't it? The twists and turns of this wicked web that Priscilla weaved. And now it's no wonder, reading the Elvis What Happened book like we're kind of doing, the reaction that Elvis had. Let's continue. She was, in fact, on a dangerous, albeit carefully plotted course. Tom Kelly, the ex-Marine who was teaching her karate in place of Ed Parker, maintained a strict policy forbidding anyone but black belts to wear a black belt uniform to class, a rule that Priscilla understood and had abided for. But by the end of August, however, after she'd been training with Mike for a month and a half, she came in one morning wearing a black uniform. He remembered. I told her it was our policy that the only people that wore black were the instructors. She said she wasn't going to wear white, and I said I was sorry, that was the rule. Priscilla, Tom recalled, said, "I can get any teacher," and she quit. What a little stuck-up. Unless that's part of the plan, to spend more time with Mike. Oh, he fired me from class, honey. I have to drive and practice with Mike more now. I mean, come on. These are the kind of things that, what do they call it, gaslighting? Well, I don't know what they call it, but that would drive people mad. The constant betrayal. Not just a quick one decision, I made a mistake, or I'm leaving, but constant lying and betraying. Okay. Ed Parker's belief Once Priscilla's affair with Mike became known was that she deliberately flouted the school's policy so that she would be thrown out, giving her an excuse to switch to Chuck Norris's karate school, which she did that September. Chuck's studio was in Sherman Oaks, a quick 10 minutes from Priscilla's house in Beverly Hills. Now, Mike Stone often stopped by the school to train or to go out for pizza after class with Chuck and his partner Bob Wall. Once she had enrolled in Chuck's classes, Priscilla's secret dalliance with Mike Stone grew more heated. They enlisted the aid of both Chuck Norris and Joan Esposito, who was having her own marital difficulties with Joe, to go on a double date. At that point in time, said Joan, Chuck was married, I was married, Mike was married, Priscilla was married, and we would go places together before the tourneys and like that, like kids date together. Priscilla slipped out easily when Elvis was out of town. Now, when he was in L.A., she pretended to go to dance class or said she was training at Chuck's karate school. We never asked and were never told, explained Bob Wall, of his part in the deception. Now, from observation, Elvis didn't spend a lot of time with her, and she was, lonely. She had a big house, the cars, the planes, the fames, but she was lonely, is what Bob Wall said. Mike and Priscilla played their cat and mouse games for several months before the relationship turned seriously physical. Oh, it's that season, when flies are out. I need to seal this location off from flies coming in here. Okay, so it turned seriously physical. Priscilla, who was paranoid about being recognized, planned an outing to Catalina Island for their first encounter. Hoping that she would be anonymous there. Now, she and Mike arranged to meet at the port in San Pedro, between Beverly Hills and Westminster, to catch the ferry for the island. And she had to make that drive down there by herself, said Mike. It was the first trip she ever made by herself on the freeway, and she was absolutely horrified. Her effort, though, illustrated the ferocity of Priscilla's physical drive. She boarded the boat shrouded in scarves and sunglasses and took a seat a few rows apart from Mike, only to have a few karate fans recognize him rather than her, to her obvious disappointment. Priscilla and Mike made out on the beach in Catalina during the day and rented a motel room that night back in Bel Air, where they committed the act for the first time. Mike, who was briefly insecure about making love to Elvis Presley's wife, was shocked to learn once they were in bed that Priscilla had not done anything with Elvis in a year. I thought that anyways. Priscilla's affair with Mike over the coming months was reminiscent of her high school romance with Tommy Stewart, for it was intense, physical, and carried out in secrecy. The distinction with Mike was that Elvis was the father figure from whom Priscilla was disguising her romance. She and Mike carried on like teenage lovers, meeting to get physical on the beach, in cars, at drive-ins, hanging upside down in a closet. Okay, I added that last one myself. The karate wives, Diane Norris and Bob Wall's spouse, who knew about the affair and were friends of Fran Stone's, resented Priscilla and regarded her as a home wrecker. Prissy, the home wrecker. They were pretty sore at Priscilla, said Bob, for her breaking up of Mike's marriage. I don't know whether I'm going to call this this video, Priscilla the Destroyer or Prissy the Homewrecker. Priscilla saw herself as a survivor, a theme that had and would continue to run through her life. Elvis's style to her was not reality. Elvis's lifestyle to her was not reality. It was not the real world. It was kind of, you get stuck in an aberration. She wanted out to be what she considered normal again, and she demonstrated a certain ruthlessness, another trait that would define Priscilla to attain that goal. Late in 1971, Priscilla and Mike took a small beach apartment in Belmont Shores, a seaside community near his karate studio, Golden West. Neither of their spouses knew of Priscilla and Mike's love nest, as it would continue to be called. With Elvis in Vegas or touring, Priscilla had nothing but time, and she passed it in bed with Mike, decorating their hideaway as she perceived her new boyfriend in somewhat primitive Hawaiian by her description. She was entranced by his native customs and called him Mickey, short for Mikiala, Mike's given Hawaiian name. Priscilla, Mike recalled, was thrilled by the simplest pleasures, going to a drive-in movie or taking her shoes off, Hawaiian style, before entering their apartment. She was just tickled to death. To her, it was a big growing situation, an opportunity for personal growth, to go out and do these things. Priscilla was like an 18-year-old who had just left her parents' home and gotten her first apartment, her first adult boyfriend, and her first whiff of freedom. In truth, she really had. So that's an interesting thing there. We know that this book, Child Bride, is based upon the idea that it was arranged by the parents, and that Priscilla, in a sense, almost had no choice in this because she was controlled by the bobbleheads. And so here she is, something that's her own choice. And of course, people don't have to make good choices. I mean, she was making wild, reckless choices when she was 12 and 13, leaving with 17 and 18-year-old boys in cars for hours at a time, drinking and doing stuff, smoking and all that stuff, according to this book and all the witnesses. And then now she's with Mike Stone, cheating on her husband, getting him to leave his wife and 2 children, 1 newborn. So she doesn't make good decisions, obviously, and she makes very selfish decisions. But it was her choice and her right as a human to screw people's lives up. She doesn't talk about that on stage, though, does she? Nope. Not at all. She's hiding in Scientology. She's hiding, I think. Because she doesn't want to face the truth. And if she even cares about it, she probably doesn't even care about it. Think about that. All right. So she was just tickled to death. To her, it was a big growing situation to get out and do these things. Priscilla was like an 18-year-old who had just left her parents' home and gotten her first apartment, her first adult boyfriend, and her first whiff of freedom, which in truth she had. The person she really was, so long veiled beneath the submissive personality she had affected in her effort to marry Elvis, began to reemerge. "I found Priscilla," she said later on. "She had her own life again. I'm getting out and realizing that I've been missing a little bit here. I've been living in a bubble. I've been sheltered. I've been protected and to a fault. I never really exerted any of my own talents or personalities. Now I was creating a life for myself, and Elvis's world now became even more bizarre to me, because he only lived within his world. You did what he wanted to do. No one else had a life, and you lived and breathed him." Priscilla had also rediscovered her dormant physical nature. The key to her relationship with Mike, the key to Priscilla, really was, in a word, That's the key to Priscilla right there. That's what opens her up. As Rona Barrett, who had heard through the Hollywood grapevine about Elvis's aversion to that physical with a mother, remarked, that was the frustration, I believe, with Priscilla. First off, we know that's baloney. Barbara Lee was a mother. Susan Henning was a mother. Lucy DeBarban was a mother. Many of those ladies were mothers. Elvis didn't have an aversion to it. At least in that way, I don't think. All right, and how she ended up with Mike Stone. She was a young woman in search of her own needs and identity, and she was with the man considered the sexiest man alive, the biggest star in the world, and he couldn't perform, according to Priscilla. Priscilla once told a reporter that she and Elvis made love less than 50 times in their marriage. That estimate was probably high. Okay, hold on a second. Did they make love once, have Lisa, and never did it again? Like she said? Or did they have 50 times? And is that 50 times in 1968 and 69? Because, you know, for a lot of people, that's quite a bit. Now, not everybody. It's certainly not one and done, or two and done, or three and done. So, we're almost done with this reading, and then we'll catch up again in a couple of days. A different sort of woman with a less powerful physical drive and a shared understanding of Elvis's spiritual odyssey might have been contented as his wife. But that woman was not Priscilla Presley. Priscilla was and always had been about sex. Boy, Suzanne Finstead. Tearing Priscilla up. Tearing her new one here. She's basically saying that she could have been in another profession where she got paid for it, because that's all she cared about. Wow. No wonder Priscilla fans hate this book. Man. That was what had drawn her to Elvis Presley's persona in the first place. Her sexuality had shaped her self-image as a child beauty contestant, as the 6th grade carnival queen, and as the 14-year-old girlfriend of a movie star. She could not survive without that, and survival was at the core of Priscilla's being. Priscilla and Mike plotting how they could be together permanently, and more trickily how to broach the subject with Elvis/Dad, for the parallels to a daughter leaving home were inescapable. Even during the earlier stages that we were seeing each other, there was always discussions between us, like what was the next step. Recalled Mike. And I believe at one point that we were seriously in love with each other. We often talked about the consequences of approaching Elvis with this situation, knowing his temper and his mentality about something like this. Oh, what? That you're carrying on an affair behind his back? His temper and his mentality about something like this. No, it's common. It's common to cheat on somebody when you're married and expect somebody to be happy and, oh, that's great. Oh, yeah, I'm happy for y'all. I'm going to throw y'all an affair wedding. I mean, what would they both expect? As they had during Priscilla's affair with the dancer several years earlier, the entourage surrounding Elvis became suspicious of her relationship with Mike Stone by the latter part of '71, One of the first to question it was Judy West, Sonny West's new wife. Elvis and Priscilla had moved into the completed Monteville house, and the Wests, in true Elvis communal style, had their own upstairs bedroom. Apparently, Mike picked Priscilla up one time at the house, and Judy West could see the driveway from where they were leaving, and she saw Mike picking Priscilla up really late at night. Esposito had said that, whose family was by then living in a house nearby that was a gift from Elvis. So she was telling Sonny, there's something going on. So Sonny and Red would talk. Sonny saw the affair for himself, according to a female martial artist who had acquired the nickname Karate Pat from Elvis. Elvis recalled Pat forgot his spiritual books during one of the engagements in Las Vegas and sent Sonny back for them. And Sonny showed up there at the house, 122 Monteville, and Priscilla and Mike were coming out of the house. Now, at the time, Elvis had an Excalibur, and they were getting in the car just as Sonny was pulling up in the driveway. Priscilla, according to Pat, said, Sonny, don't tell Elvis. And he was like, oh, man, why do you put me in this position? And he said to Mike, man, if Elvis knew you were driving this car, he'd have you S-H-O-T. Joe Esposito, whose wife Joan was going on a double date with Priscilla and Mike, was so convinced that the Priscilla he thought he knew would never have an affair. He bet Red West $100 that Sonny was wrong about Mike Stone. Despite his awareness of Priscilla's dancer lover back in '68, I said no, Priscilla would never do that. Never. Impossible. There were rumors that Lisa told one of the maids she saw Mommy kissing Mickey, and that the maid then circulated the story. Columnist Rona Barrett claimed that Hollywood insiders knew about Priscilla's affair with Mike Stone before Elvis did. We knew something was going on. Everybody knew how unhappy she was. Mike later admitted that he and Priscilla became more careless about being seen in public, arriving separately at karate tournaments, but then sitting together. The affair became common knowledge in the martial art world. Ed Hookstrat, Elvis's Los Angeles lawyer, took it upon himself, sometimes around the fall, to use his private investigator, John O'Grady, to confirm or put to rest rumors about Priscilla and Mike. Elvis's friends, he said, had gotten rather rambunctious, and I wanted to find out who the instigators were, and we came up with a lot of interesting things. The only one Hookstrat would name later was Priscilla's affair with Mike. They found a lot of interesting things about Priscilla, but the only one that he would later name would be Mike Stone. Wow. Does that mean what we think it might mean? I mean, we know. I mean, it's not just one or two. It's usually a lot. Elvis was not in L.A. when Ed confirmed Priscilla's infidelity, so he called Joe, who was with the singer, to break the news. I wanted Joe to get him alone and be with him, so someone was with him when he told him this, rather than for me to cold call him. Joe was aghast. I couldn't believe it. I was completely in shock that this little girl I'd known all these years. I was devastated, said Joe. It was perhaps a lesson in Priscilla's ability to deceive, despite her aura of innocence. Her secret affair with Mike also demonstrated the strength of her will and her sexuality, factors that lent credence to Curry's claim in his dispute with Priscilla over whether or not they actually had completed that act before he took her to meet Elvis. Despite proof positive that Priscilla had sex with Mike Stone, Joe remained incredulous. I warned Elvis, but I wanted to deny it. He said, and Elvis, according to Joe, couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that it was going on. Completely wanted to deny it. There followed the Christmas of Elvis and Prissy's discontent. Okay. That's where we're going to stop. That is when Elvis went to D.C. and met, according to Are You Lonesome Tonight, Lucy DeBarban, and then flew to LA and got Jerry Schilling, flew back to DC, met Nixon, spent time with Joyce Boba. It had been going on. This affair had been carrying on for who knows how long. I don't know. A year, year and a half. Certainly it wasn't a 1 month thing. It wasn't a 1 week thing. It had been going on probably since somewhere in mid 1970 or early 70. I don't know. And the other things that John O'Grady found out might have been plenty of other men, like a whole lineup of them. I don't know. Anyhow, good morning to everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening. I wanted to get up early, like I said, and read to y'all. So a little bit longer video for you, and we'll do more, okay? TCB TLC, have a wonderful day.